Why are you losing your girlfriend in a relationship and don't even understand why or because of what? Admit it. You immediately felt that something was wrong, that you were starting to lose her. Yes, you lived together, slept in the same bed, but you felt as if you were in a completely different city. That's how disconnected you already were from each other. And naturally, after that, you heard those magic phrases. I need to be alone, I need to think, I don't know, or I need a relationship. And now you see they're not understanding exactly where everything went wrong. You gave everything, and in return emptiness. You were there for her, but for some reason, that turned out to be not enough. And what's most frightening is that maybe, yes, you didn't even do anything bad or terrible. You just made small mistakes every day, which did what? In the end, they led to the breakup. You killed all her attraction, all her feelings. I've seen this hundreds of times. I myself was once in this situation. You try, you give gifts, you put up with their antics, you agree to everything, and then you sit in emptiness, asking yourself, what did I do wrong? Where did I make a mistake? But the answer was always right in front of you. The girl hinted at your mistakes more than once, but you didn't hear her. I'm sure that 95% of the viewers will be men who have already failed in relationships, whether in their personal or even family life. Why are the numbers so staggering? Who is more interested in learning how to build relationships properly, women or men? Of course, women. They're constantly attending some kind of relationship training or seeing psychologists for consultations. Honestly, it's almost entirely impossible, even in most situations, to find a man at a relationship training or consultation. That's where all the problems in men's relationships begin. Many men spend years learning how to make money and build a business. But to learn how to build their personal life? No, that's not serious. They don't want to deal with it. And then we're surprised when we lose the woman we love, not realizing that our personal life is the most important thing for us as men. When we've lost the woman we love, we want businesses, money, travel. No, we men think that everything should just happen on its own. But really, I'll figure it out. But how has that ever happened? No. Could such a miracle happen? No. Can you imagine if men thought the same way about business? You don't need to work on business, you don't need to learn, everything should just happen by itself. Could such a miracle happen? In business, never. But for some reason, in relationships we count on a miracle and then wonder why there are already 87% divorces. Unfortunately, in 90% of cases, we only start learning about relationships when something has happened. Some people just need a gentle tap on the shoulder, a little hint from above that it's time, my friend, to start figuring out relationships. For example, maybe you had an argument and some people need to break up and lose their loved one before it finally hits them that they need to start understanding relationships. Just like today, I was watching a video on Instagram. I happened to come across an acquaintance of mine. They were together for 6 years, had 2 kids. They had it all, a Lamborghini, a Bentley, more money than you could count. 3 million followers, everything. And then divorce. Why? Because in relationships there is no room for mistakes. Just one small mistake and the relationship can fall apart. Just like your life. How many people have committed suicide after a breakup? That's why you need to understand the relationships from A to Z. If you don't want your life to end in tragedy, relationships are like a route. You might think that if you just go along, love, give, everything will be fine. But without a clear direction and understanding, sooner or later you'll crash where? Into the pole. Most men go blindly, without navigation, without a map, without a system. And then we wonder why she left. Why am I alone again? Why do I have to get divorced? And then, because of this, children will suffer their whole lives because of a broken family. And why does this happen? Because from early childhood, unfortunately, we are not taught anywhere, neither in schools nor in universities, about relationships, not even by the example of our parents. Why? Because the statistics are as follows. 87% of marriages end in divorce. The remaining 13% stay together because of the kids, because of the apartment, and so on. Naturally, a child witnesses all this horror, how their parents argued, divorced, fought, and then suffers from it for their entire life. Why? Because they will copy exactly the same behavior as their parents. They have no other experience, so they end up repeating the same patterns as their parents. The only way not to repeat your parents' mistakes is, of course, to find a guru or mentor who, I'll say it again, is truly knowledgeable in the field of relationships. Because nowadays there are plenty of pseudo-psychologists around. My name is John Dollar. I have been studying psychology and the topic of relationships for 18 years now. I have analyzed more than 5,000 men's stories and consultations. And I have helped bring back a huge number of girlfriends. I've already helped men get their girlfriends back over 100 times. In some cases, things were so bad that they had even blocked each other, but still, we managed to bring them back together. And in almost every story, I heard the same mistakes over and over again. They're not obvious, but they're fatal. Today, you'll see these common mistakes for yourself. And if you happen to recognize even just one of these mistakes in your own actions or thoughts, you truly have a chance. Today you'll learn about 5 mistakes that kill a woman's attraction. And why do 90% of men lose their relationships without even realizing it? A woman herself might not even understand what exactly is pushing her away, but inside she has 5 basic needs. The first is safety: emotional, financial, physical, intellectual, and sexual. For example, so that you don't cheat on her. The second is firmness and boundaries. So she feels that you're a man with positions and principles. The third is strength. Not pity, but backbone. If I didn't like something, I told her about it right away. Fourth is a development scenario, an understanding of where you are heading together. For example, marriage, children, and so on. And fifth is emotions. A woman needs the full range of emotions, both good and bad. You have to be both gentle and firm, a romantic and a tough guy. There should be a balance of negative and positive emotions. That's just how female nature works. Otherwise, she'll have 2 men. Only a pushover and the other a scoundrel, or as they're also called, a bad boy. So if you fall short in even one of these 5 areas, she won't see you as a real man. A girl will leave even the perfect guy who gave her gifts, took care of her, and so on, because she doesn't feel like a woman next to him. And here they are, the top 5 early but fatal mistakes. First, you gave yourself away too quickly. You made her the center of your world, while she hadn't even invested in the relationship yet. You became too available and free, which means you stopped being valuable. Remember, the one who invests is the one who falls in love. If she hasn't invested anything in your relationship, how can she value it? Mistake number 2. You don't pick up on the signals. She became cold, distant, avoided intimacy, and you thought, oh, it's just PMS, she's tired, it'll pass on its own. No, those were actually signals that you were doing something wrong. Mistake number 3. You became convenient, not attractive. You try to negotiate, to please her, just to avoid any arguments or hurting her feelings. God forbid, my sunshine would cry. You bend to her terms, but what she needs is someone who sets the pace in the relationship, not someone who just gives in. Mistake number 4. You started pressing her feelings with logic. Let's talk. Explain what's wrong. Yes, conversations are important, of course, but at that point nothing could be restored or resolved with words. Her attraction had already disappeared. Logic, how can you bring back emotions and attraction with logic? No way. You needed to act, not just talk. And mistake number 5. You don't understand the dynamics of attraction. You became predictable. You're always available. You're no longer the source of her emotions. Now you're just background noise. Recently, I had a man come to me for a consultation. He proposed to his girlfriend. She said yes, and 3 months later they divorced. She left him for someone else. Why? Because I lost interest. The value disappeared. Maybe you're watching this video right now and thinking, okay, that sounds logical, but my situation is special, really unique. We had our own story, our own experiences. You know, every other man who comes to me for a consultation says exactly the same thing, almost word for word. But when we start analyzing the relationship, everyone has different stories, but the same mistakes. And here are the stories of 4 men. Different ages, different women, different relationships, but the same result. She grew distant, and he was left alone in the emptiness. The only difference is that they managed to change everything in time. Here's case number 1. A man, 36 years old, wife, 2 children. According to him, he did everything right. Work, family, care. And then suddenly she said, I don't want anything anymore. I realized I had become a provider, not a man. After analyzing my mistakes, I rebuilt myself. At first she was silent, then she started cuddling up to me at night again. Now it's like a second honeymoon, and now I know where I lost myself back then. Case number 2. Ruslan, 27 years old. He had a manipulative girlfriend. One moment it was ignoring, then love, then she wanted him, then she didn't. He was always on an emotional roller coaster. She fed him doses of attention and he clung to them. After the lessons, he set clear boundaries with her about what was acceptable and what wasn't. Now the relationship is calm and enjoyable. A week later she told him, you've changed, and now I'm afraid of losing you. Case number 3. A man, 41 years old, was always trying to save the relationship and showered her with gifts. He thought the more gifts and care he gave, the stronger the love would be. As a result, he became background for her, cozy, predictable, boring. He analyzed his mistakes and became a challenge. Now she writes to him, I want you again, and he himself feels like a man, not just an obliging boy anymore. Case number 4. A man, 30 years old, proposed to her, but she left anyway. He thought the engagement ring was the ultimate milestone. It turned out to be the point of no return. He proposed. She agreed, but 3 months later she left for another man. After analyzing his mistakes, he understood why it happened. He became predictable. The excitement disappeared. Now I understand that the value isn't in the gesture itself, but in what comes after it. You can think about your own relationships, alright? Things didn't work out with this girl, you'll get lucky next time. No, you'll only get lucky if you change your strategy. Otherwise, every next time with every new girl will be just the same. Until you learn the lesson, changing girls is pointless. Right now, you're at a crossroads. Either you recognize your mistakes and stop repeating them, or you lose your love again. And you know what's the most upsetting part? You're not a bad person. You're just acting according to patterns that don't work. I can change that. You have a choice. Keep living by the old pattern, hoping things will somehow resolve themselves, wasting time, nerves, and motivation. Or take the time once to analyze your mistakes and finally understand why everything used to fall apart and how to make sure it never happens again. So you can build a relationship where she's afraid to lose you. Everything you've just heard is only the tip of the iceberg. In reality, there are 47 such mistakes. And most men make them over and over again, without even realizing what exactly is destroying their relationships. I've gathered all these mistakes into one analysis into a single video lesson lasting 8.5 hours. This isn't a lecture, it's a working roadmap. The mistake, the symptom. What should you do to change the situation? Imagine if you knew in advance where a breakup could happen, and you could avoid it before it's too late. That's the power of a conscious man to chase after her, but to create a relationship she doesn't want to leave. And remember, results aren't luck. They're knowledge plus the right actions. And actions start with this very lesson. So watch the lesson, 47 Fatal Mistakes That Destroy Relationships, and stop repeating the patterns that lead to loneliness.